older I get, the more I realize the massive value that isometric training can bring to improve the quality of your workouts, especially when it comes to calisthenics, but of course other modalities of training as well. The reason is very simple. Most dynamic forms of strength training involve repetitions where we move from point A, point B, and then return. So it's squats, push-ups, pull-ups, and so on. When we go through a range of motion, typically we have the introductory point is lowest point of resistance on the muscles. Then as we lower ourselves closer to the floor or up to the pull-up bar, resistance increases through our range of motion until we get to what I call a peak point in the range of motion. And then we lower ourselves back down. So we kind of have this wave motion. This peak point is the place where we want to hold most of our isometric contraction. And the reason for this is because that peak point could be the place where you gain most of your training benefit, but transitioning through it fairly quickly can mean that you don't spend much time there and you're losing out on potential benefits. The reason for this is a couple of things. The first is that peak point, you have maximum amount of contraction in your muscles, so you're building a lot of strength at that place. The second is mobility in your joints. This is especially the case when it comes to lower body exercises, where you have a decent amount of stretching and mobility being challenged at that point. And then finally, of course, is stability as well. So these are the three functional aspects that I talk about in other videos: strength, stability, and mobility, that basically amount to the effectiveness and the quality of your training. So if we're maximizing the amount of these three things that you need at that peak point, you're spending the majority of your time through each repetition away from that peak point and therefore not getting as much potential benefit as you want from your exercise. Other considerations are that when you get to this peak point, things like tension control and the ability to feel confident with the exercise can often decrease, especially if some of the muscles are weak. Oftentimes, this is the case where you do lunges and you get down and you feel wobbly in the bottom position, or at the bottom of a push-up, for example, you feel like your shoulders round forward, your chest turns off. It can be very problematic if your technique is eroding a little tiny bit at that peak point, which means there's stress on your joints, there's more risk of injury, and you're feeling a little bit less unsure or having that muscle confidence to be strong and power through that point in the exercise. So improving that ability to stabilize, mobilize, and improve tension control at that peak point through isometrics can greatly increase your safety, effectiveness, and what you can gain from your exercise as a whole. You can use isometrics many different ways. One is, of course, just using them as a part of a warm-up, just holding that down into the bottom of the squat or the top of a pull-up for about 5, 10, 15 seconds as a warm-up before you get into your actual program where you're going through dynamic repetitions. Of course, you can always just do it as your normal workout, holding things like stretch outs, holding for a plank, keeping your legs up with leg raises, getting into a deep low stance and holding there. That's also certainly a viable option as well. And of course, you can always use it as a finisher. Isometrics make really good finishers because it doesn't require as much movement or concentration, so it's good to hold a position, maybe even not so much a peak position, but somewhere in between, so that you can really bring your muscles to a high level of fatigue at the end of your workouts to, well, finish them off. So hopefully that gives you some ideas and some things to think about when it comes to using isometrics to improve the quality of your calisthenics training. There are my thoughts. Let me know yours down below. Be fit, live free.